that you could join us on a day when the market is actually green. A lot different than last week, but just like every week on MarketBeat Monday, we have MarketBeat analysts Chris Markoch and Thomas Hughes with us today. Guys, thanks so much for being on again to break down some of the biggest market movers of the week and to address the stocks that our viewers want to hear about today. Before we get into some of the names you've suggested, let's take a look at the heat map. It's doing pretty well. This is the color we like to see in the market, and that's some green. Some really big movers today, Chris and Thomas.
Yeah.
Right.
Alphabet's been a big mover today.
Right.
And we should say that's a continuation, really, because Alphabet's been a big mover for a little while since its earnings report, and it became relevant again in the AI trade because people realized that Google search wasn't dead, and in fact, because of AI, Google is now a very, very relevant player in the trade through its Gemini model, and now actually some of the concern is going towards OpenAI in that regard.
Right, and it just kind of reignited the entire AI trade because you think any of these big hyperscalers that are investing big in AI need GPUs, and that means NVIDIA and other semiconductor manufacturers such as Broadcom and AMD, which were both up pretty strong, but also reaffirms the other AI players like Microsoft, Oracle, Amazon, Meta were all up. And just generally green across the tech sphere. Oh, and Micron. Micron's really a big hot play in AI because no matter who makes the chips, they need the HBM memory. HBM memory is in shortage right now, and that's benefiting people like Micron.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get that Micron chart up quick to see how much it's moving today. I didn't seem to move quite as much today. Maybe it's moving after hours. I'm just pulling up the screen. It says 5-day performance. That might not be right.
No, it was up like 8% today.
8% today.
Yes, it did have a big move today. It just didn't show right up here.
It's just, you always got to be careful what time frame you're looking in because some news will report for today or for 5 days or 30 days or the last week or 5 weeks.
Right.
So it's tough to keep track of that sometimes.
It is. But yeah, that's a big mover today. I want to look at Micron just a little bit further before we move on. It's still at a buy rating, but it does look like it's trading above its consensus price target. Would love to see what your thoughts are on that. I know the high end of those price targets are closer to 325 on Micron. What are your takes?
So what we see here is a market that has surged up to a high driven by sentiment, and the sentiment is definitely leading it up to that high. But the market has outrun the consensus, which, is kind of lagging price action still. Right. So we see this big correction last week, kind of puts the market back in alignment with the consensus trend. And now we're seeing some support today with today's bounce. So ultimately the trend is still up. It's being driven by analysts. Analysts are leading this market to new highs. And as you said, the high end of this range is up in the $300 region. So we're looking at like a $75 to $100 upside from this level, just based on current trends. And because I'm expecting to see Micron's business really accelerate over the next few quarters, especially in the back half of the year when AMD's MI450s come out, that high-end range could continue to move higher and be increased.
Yeah, they don't report earnings even until the middle of December. So, and you're already seeing analysts now that have price targets of like $333. So that's like $100 above consensus now. And that means that they're already predicting that they're going to have a really good earnings report in the middle of December.
Yeah. And Micron's an interesting stock, kind of similar to Oracle in regards to the earnings cycle, because it kind of reports in between the peaks of seasons. Mm-hmm. So it's hard to say, is it a late reporter or an early reporter?
Right.
So it's either going to affirm what we saw in the last quarter's reports, or it's going to give us a preview for the next quarter. But either way, it's expected to be a pretty strong report and have pretty decent guidance, which just plays into that whole AI trend, the AI trade, and the idea that it's bigger and growing faster than what we thought it was.
Agreed.
Yeah, there's a lot of growth happening here. We have a lot of different people giving some different ideas of stocks they want to talk about today. Some really good ones are Quantum taking a jump today. Also talking about Bitcoin. That's going to lead me to talk about Applied Digital too. So let's talk about Bitcoin first. We've seen a little bit of I think it was almost a 1% to 2% gain, at least in Bitcoin, but some of those other smaller coins were doing really well today. Are we seeing the Bitcoin related stocks also having a move today?
Yes. Iron, I know that stock's been taking a hit in November, and Iron was up sharply today. At one point, I know it was up over 10%. I don't know if that's where it's finishing the day, but
Right.
like I said, that one was up over 10%. Applied Digital, I didn't look at that specifically today,
Right.
but go ahead.
Bitfarms and Terawulf are both moving higher today, and
Yeah.
they're Bitcoin miners, Bitcoin traders. So they're moving in alignment with the Bitcoin price. It looks to me like they corrected much harder than the Bitcoin price did,
Right.
and so they could have a harder time with price recovery, just because now we've got a whole lot of seller overhang in the market.
Yeah, Applied Digital is up 12.8% today, Bridget.
Yes, that's the chart I just pulled up right now. Let's talk about there's more than just the chart action to talk about in Applied Digital. Let's talk about why we saw some moves there.
Well, one of the reasons was they announced that they're. I'm just going to read this directly because I'm going to screw it up otherwise. But announced the successful and on time, ready for service for the second phase of its Polaris Forge AI factory campus in North Dakota. So it's now got 1 out of the 3 facilities that are going to be there operating at their full 100 megawatt critical load, and that's why the stock is that was just announced today, and that's helping to push the stock higher because again, that's the reality. Okay, now that this is real. This is a real facility that's now really being built and really having the power.
So really affirming this robust outlook that's been blossoming over time. And so then also compounded by the general reinvigoration of the AI trade, plus the rebound in Bitcoin is maybe kind of all helping this company a little bit to a degree.
Sure.
Yeah. For those of you who might be new to MarketBeat Monday, I've shared this a few times on the channel. Applied Digital is building one of these in my hometown in North Dakota, one of those teeny tiny towns where these are being built. And so we started talking about this in the summer when it was around $5 or $6 a share. In its heyday, it was up around $36. So we've been talking about this one for a long time. It's a small stock, but it's seen a tremendous amount of growth. I'm sure some of you are excited to see that bounce back a little bit today. Let me know in the chat right now if you were in on Applied Digital early, if you're seeing that bounce back today. It's good news. We'll see. I want to talk really quick before we move on to some of the other names that we have coming in the chat. Small caps in general did pretty well today, right? I think as a whole, last week on MarketBeat Monday, it was doom and gloom, and every single small cap stock that's come up on MarketBeat Monday was really getting hit hard. Is this a really good sign? What are your thoughts about the move that we saw in small caps today?
Looks like the Russell rebounded almost 2%, so that's a pretty good move. Showing support at critical moving averages. That support is below the prior highs, but still at a pretty good level. That tells me this market is moving up past these highs. Looks to me like a trend following signal that is in alignment with the sector rotation trade, the expanding into small cap trade that we've been talking about for the last few quarters. So to me, it's generally a pretty good move. The indicators are also set up to fire this trend following signal, this trend that began in April, this nice, pretty robust upswing in price action that we've been seeing. So I think that's going to continue. I think that we'll probably see some new Russell highs. I mean, maybe by the end of the year, but probably in early 2026.
All right, very interesting. All right, we've got a lot of different questions coming in. eHelp, great to have you back. We talked about Applied Digital. He wanted to know CoreWeave versus Applied Digital. Are they in the same sphere, and which one would you go with? Let's take a look at CoreWeave. I'm popping that one up. This is another one that has had a rough time. It had such a huge rise and then a pretty big fall recently too.
Right. So they're not exactly the same business, but generally speaking, they're providing GPU compute space as a service. And since we know from NVIDIA that GPU and GPU compute space that they have has been sold out, there's going to be a pretty large amount of demand for their businesses. So they're just being reaffirmed in the AI trade. It's part of the AI trade in general. Right now, it looks like all the players that are in the AI trade that are really producing, there's plenty of room for them all to continue growing and even some more to emerge. So right now it looks pretty good.
All right, very good. Let's get to that quantum field that a lot of people are seeing a jump in right now. Rigetti's the first name. Let's go to Rigetti, and we'll look at also probably D-Wave. That's another one we usually look at there to see if they're moving together or not. Do we know why we're seeing that sudden resurgence in quantum stocks today?
Well, just looking at the chart, it seems to be like a sympathetic move with the broad market. It looks like the last few weeks, couple of months, the market has just been kind of selling in general, had some fears, had some concerns, and now it looks like in this market as well, not just in the broad market, but that selling appears to be over with.
That's my main question as we look at some of these bounces today, because we're seeing similar chart stories right now. Is it enough of a bounce to really get excited about? Does this mean, the doom and gloom phase is over? One of the comments, DK had said, big money's on holiday next week, things will collapse again. Is there any
no,
validity to that?
I think he's on to something there, and it's hard. It's the question of, I think it's going to take into next week before you really see what the rally is. Because yes, this week's going to be, volume's going to be down. The institutional traders are already on their holiday, and we'll have to wait and see what happens when they all come back in.
So there is that holiday trade, that low volume, kind of high volatility aspect to what's going on today. But that said, we're seeing a lot of upward movement, strong movements from critical support levels, and a lot of stocks that's being echoed from sector to sector. So it's very promising. And so like Chris and our viewer have been saying, next week we'll see some confirmation. So we assume that like last week, the institutions, maybe they stopped selling as much as they were, or just people in general stopped selling as much as they were. And this week it's a wait and see what happens. Right now it's rebounding to the upside, which is pretty good. So next week we might see the institutions and other smart money traders follow through on that move, help confirm this bottom, and really get the market in a rebound mode.
And we'll wait and see too. I think Wednesday will be an interesting day, because let's see if some of these, if it's volatile like this, let's see if some of these people aren't just trying to do a quick trade themselves and say, okay, we're going to do this and we're going to sell before the long weekend, because we don't want to be caught. We don't want to be caught holding the stock long on a Monday when the institutional investors come back. So like I said, yeah, it could be a volatile week in that regard.
Yeah, I think that's really solid advice for people too. We have one other thing to talk about with Thanksgiving here, but I'm going to have Thomas talk about Thanksgiving. Historically, Thanksgiving has been a winning period. Think about that. And then Chris, if you want to look up, we have somebody asking about OUST quite often. So let's just get that one out of the way. Let's do OUST. Okay. And then Thomas, what do you think? Has Thanksgiving historically been a pretty good boost for the market?
Well, generally speaking, holidays, you see the market move higher because you have a lot of the smart money moving out of the market. A lot of retail traders that are home from work, have time on their hands, are in the market. And typically retail traders are buying stocks. So you tend to get upside bias on those days. But right now, I think that we're still in a pretty decent uptrend in the market, S&P 500. So retail traders aren't off base to be buying stocks right now. The setup to me in the S&P looks pretty solid. We have seen some volatility over the last few weeks, but really we're moving sideways. We're showing support at the 65.50. Right now we've got the market moving higher, and the indicators are set up to produce a trend following swing. So right now, like we said before, kind of looking for the market to move higher this week, and then next week see what happens. Next week, if the S&P keeps moving higher, it'll probably be setting a new all-time high. That will definitely confirm the uptrend. If not, we'll see the institutions start selling, and then the gains will be capped. And from that point forward, we might enter a correction, or at least just keep moving sideways.
All right, very good. Thomas, while Chris is going over this next one, you can look up SoundHound and AMPX, two of your favorites. I know you know a lot about them, but just take a quick look and see what they're doing right now. Chris, let's look at OUST. What have you learned about this company?
Yeah, so OUST, this is a company, they do physical AI. So we're talking about LiDAR, we're talking about primarily LiDAR that's helping to power autonomous technology. And one of the things that I'm seeing is the stock's up very strongly for the year. It's up 124% in the last year. It's trading well below the analyst consensus right now, about 50% below the analyst consensus. From what I'm seeing is the company's trying to pivot a little bit a little bit away from the automotive realm, and they're trying to go more into some of the robotics things. Like, for example, they're going into Serve Technology, which was a company that I know you and I talked about recently. So they're kind of where the lidar is going to be guiding these robots and other things. So stocks, like I said, it's been volatile lately, down significantly from the beginning of the month, but looks like, again, right now it was up sharply today, and it could be that could be, again, just part of this speculation trade, but we'll have to see.
Yeah, I haven't heard of that one on the channel much before, so thanks for bringing
I
that one
agree.
up. Very interesting. Let's go ahead and go to those more familiar names too, just to kind of rapid fire through some of these again. SoundHound,
Right.
what's going on there?
Well, SoundHound, I think it's just a market trying to get its feet under it. We have seen a pretty strong correction, but that's got nothing to do with the fundamentals. There hasn't really been a change in the fundamental news. I think there is still some concern about whether or not it can grow and reach profitability quickly enough, but I think that they're unfounded. Another issue with SoundHound is that let me check and make sure it's still so, but it has had fairly tepid institutional support. And so that kind of leaves it susceptible to short selling and profit taking because there's not a lot of really strong committed buyers in the market right now. So institutional ownership is about 20%. It is on the rise, but that's still pretty low. Short interest is up there, right? It's almost 30%. So right now we've got people who are really betting against this market, even though it's been producing and performing. So right now what I see is a setup forming where we can get a short squeeze, but it might be a couple of quarters before it happens. It just depends on how quickly it's able to capitalize on some of those deals and start producing revenue growth and an accelerating outlook.
Yeah, I think Michael has a question about SoundHound, specifically asking about, I believe, revenue and earning. Let's take a look at what stood out to you from earnings. I know it was just a couple of weeks ago, or even just last week.
Well, right. So outperformed, raised guidance, making plans to help accelerate enterprise adoption, which is all just good news for this company. It kind of fits into part of the AI story, which is when you spend money on AI, spend money to help businesses make money, eventually that money comes back to you plus more. So right now, this is a story where they're really developing their outlook, and we need to see them kind of follow through on it and show the results of that work that they're doing. I think that will happen in the upcoming quarters, and that could provide us a catalyst for that short squeeze that I was talking about.
Right.
All right, another name we've talked about lots of times on the channel before. And Chris, I'm going to have you look up just Meta. People want to know about the moves that are happening with Meta. And then there's another smaller one, UiPath. I think that's maybe come up once before. If it's too small, we might not make it on. But
UiPath is good.
Okay, let's talk about AMPX for now, Thomas, while Chris looks those ones up.
Right.
What kind of moves did we see today?
AMPX moved higher along with the broader market. It's showing support at the critical level. The last few weeks, it has corrected, pretty significantly from almost 15 to right around $10. So about by 50%. That's a pretty big move. But this is a market that's really swelling because of its expanding backlog, expanding orders, it's expanding production, the ramping outlook for revenue and for profitability. So within this pullback, despite its large size, we're still finding support above the prior highs at critical level that indicates a pivot and a shift in the market. So there hasn't been any new news since the earnings release. We're still just going to be waiting for the subsequent release to come out. It should be a pretty strong one. Affirm this outlook and provide another catalyst. So meanwhile, the analysts are still very bullish. They've been lifting their targets. They're looking for this market to rise up to the $14 to $16 level with the recent revisions, which is a 40 to 60% upside from where we are right now, assuming that the revenue and the earnings continue to grow as all indications say they will. This stock should be setting new highs fairly soon, within the next couple of months, perhaps with the next earnings release, and then moving up to new all-time highs probably by the middle of next year, I would say.
All right, very good. Well, Chris, let's go ahead and take a look at Meta first. What's happening there?
Yeah, so Meta's been down since it reported earnings, and it didn't. The earnings weren't bad by any stretch of the imagination. It was just the fact that people got nervous because it was just what Thomas was talking about with SoundHound a little bit, where Meta was one of the first companies that really went all in to spend on AI. And then the stock got punished because people were like, well, when are we going to start seeing a return on this investment? Then all of a sudden, the AI trade took off and Meta took off. Basically, Meta outperformed because people realized that the company was ahead of the game as far as investing in AI. Well, what happened in the last earnings report was Meta doubled down on it and said, we're going to continue to invest in these data centers and such. And the company's getting it pulled back a little bit because now, again, the AI trade was just people started getting nervous about, is all this demand going to come to fruition? Are we going to need all this infrastructure? And that's why the stock got whacked down. It's trading below its 250-day moving average. It's showing a slight bounce up here right now. Again, I think this is just, you saw Microsoft, a similar type of move was made in that. You're kind of seeing this in all the hyperscalers right now. Not that I wouldn't be that worried about it if I were an investor in Meta. And I think right now the MACD looks like it's showing signs that it might be getting ready to make a bullish reversal here. So I'm thinking right now is probably a good time to start getting back into Meta. RSI looks like it's in the oversold range right now. So if you're looking to get back into Meta, I think you can pretty much say you're looking like this is probably a good time to be thinking about getting back in.
Yeah, one thing I've got pulled up right now is some of the recent upgrades in analyst price targets.
Yeah.
And it looks like back on October 30th, Rosenblatt Securities moved it up to an $1,100, more than an $1,100 price target. So there are some higher end moves for Meta, but it really is kind of all over the place, which I know is typical of these mega cap companies.
Right. They've had a couple of downgrades since their earnings report as well. And again, that's just because, again, people got nervous about the amount of spending that Meta said that they're going to be doing. But from what I see, the price targets are all are either at or right around where the consensus price target is. And I do even see a couple that are UBS Group that's at 915 and such. So again, I think that Meta had a great run, and there was nothing in the earnings report that said it wasn't going to continue that, except for skepticism. I mean, right now there's just skepticism about the data center trade, and that seems now to be calming down. And the chart looks really strong for Meta if you're going to be getting it.
Well, right. Looking at the chart here, this pullback, I see it's finding support at the bottom of this tiny range that was opened up in the spring. This gap. And to me, that closing the gap is important. Technically, it allows the market to, want to close the gap and then prepare to move forward again. But we're setting up for a trend following signal. What Chris was saying about the indicators, MACD is starting to roll over. The stochastic indicates overbought or oversold conditions, and we see the first glimpses of a signal starting to form. So assuming this market is able to continue, holding this level and then start creeping higher, we'll see a pretty strong signal form in the indicators and indicate a robust trend following signal.
Good. Well, let's keep moving on through. We try to cover as many stocks as we can here. We're going to go to UiPath or PATH for the stock ticker. Yep. I do remember we've talked about this one on the channel before too. What is this company and what kind of moves are we seeing?
So UiPath is business automation. They were automating businesses using machine learning and AI with these Autobots to automate businesses long before AI became a thing. We've been expecting the stock price to really take off for a couple of years now because of its position with AI and business automation, and it just really hasn't been doing it. So right now it's consolidating. It recently moved up above the moving averages, and it's got some support at those levels now. The question is what happens in the subsequent earnings reports. Will it be able to advance and set a new high? In that case, we might get a full reversal. If not, this stock is just going to keep trending sideways for the foreseeable future.
All right, a good quick look at that one. We've got a lot of other names coming in that we want to cover here really quick. ASTS, this is a good one. And then we're going to go, Charmin, thanks for joining us again today. RCAT, this was one of my Bridget's Buys picks. And I do want to put that up really quick. If you haven't heard about Bridget's Buys, we launched it last week. And this is every day we talk about stock lists. And I'm picking one stock that we talk about every day to go on to Bridget's Buys. Here is the quick QR code you can scan, or it's just a really quick URL. It's marketbeat.com/Bridget. And that shows or tracks all the different stocks that I picked. I picked one from our very long conversation on MarketBeat Monday last week. We'll look at that one too, Nebius, and see how that one's doing. But I wanted to bring up RCAT first. So let's just do that. This was the one that we talked about on Saturday's video with Chris. And I think it's gone up quite a bit.
Let me see. Where did it go today? It looks like it's up today. I gotta
up almost 13%. It looks like.
Yeah, it's up almost 13% today. You know what I'm seeing when I look at the chart here, Bridget? I see a similar story to what we just talked about with Meta. So the stock has been up sharply since the late spring. And the stock kind of made a round trip there, but it looks like it hit a level of support right around that level of where it was at in the middle of May or the end of May. And again, as long as that holds and shows like you can get some support there, that's looking pretty good for the stock. I'm looking here. Again, just like Meta, the MACD looks like it's getting ready to turn positive. Relative strength. Yeah, it is bouncing off a level where it was oversold. So again, I think traders are looking at it and saying now might be a time to get into it. I don't think anything fundamentally changed with the company. They reported earnings a couple of weeks ago, and they missed on earnings. And I say missed, I should say that in air quotes. It's not a profitable company yet, but their earnings came in slightly better than they were year over year. They were last year in the same quarter, they posted an 18-cent loss per share. This year, they posted a 16% loss per share. But analysts were hoping that it was going to be only like a 7-cent loss per share. So there's probably a little bit of sentiment of the stock was disappointed. But I like the revenue story. Revenue is up strongly. So, so again, the company's it's in the right type of sector for growth, but I think again the market just got a little bit ahead of itself and pulled back, and I think it's presenting a nice opportunity.
Very good. It's got a nice little boost for Bridget's buy list too. I'll show how that's doing in a minute. We'll get to Nebius. Thomas, I'll have you look at that too. But I think you guys, because we're talking about the drone companies with RCAT, let's talk about ONDS. This is something that somebody commented on a video earlier in the week. I read all the comments that come in on the videos that we post every day throughout the week. So comment on those, anything you're interested in hearing about. Let's just pull this one up because it's in the same field. This one's having a really nice boost right now.
Right, up 30% today. It invested in a combat robotics company that's going to help it expand its growth capabilities. It's also got a news stream that includes several follow-on orders and new orders from its clients, outperformance. It's improving guidance. The outlook is really swelling. I think the analysts are also on board with this one. Let me double check on that one. But really just a nice growth outlook for profitability that is being reflected in analyst trends. We have a really nice spike in coverage. The revisions are nice, leading to the $12 range. So we're looking at 30% upside from where we are right now. Chart action is good, reflects support here in the mid-single digits. Nice, 30% spike. Definitely on track to hit the $12 region. These moves right now are accompanied by really rapidly increasing volume, which tells me that this is probably a move with legs, a move that will stick with staying power. So what we're going to want to watch with this one is the analysts, but also the institutions, because they're going to be providing a lot of the for this market. Right now, they own about 38%, and they've been buying at a pace of 10 to 1. So that's a pretty robust tailwind for this market.
Good. All right, let's go now to Nebius Group, just because I think that this is a really good one to show how much movement we've seen in the market in just 1 week and how much these small caps can really, really move. This one right now, I'm just going to pull up the chart and then I'll pull it up on Bridget's buy list too, just so you can see. It's up 10% today. And you can see on Wednesday, it was also up about 10% on Wednesday. So up 10%, down 10%, up 10%.
Right.
Are those normal
Yeah.
swings? Is that just a sign of what you can expect in this kind of small cap market? Or is that a sign of some just increased volatility over the last week?
Well, the volatility is because it's a small cap market with this rapidly swelling outlook. So big swing up, big correction, but now we're showing support at these critical levels. Again, this is another GPU as a service stock. So it's definitely been invigorated by the AI trade. You have to think that anybody that wants AI computing power is going to have to look to a company like this to get it, because NVIDIA is sold out. We see that in the news cycle because people like Microsoft and maybe Amazon have now contracted for their internal computing power from this company. So another good outlook, been affirmed by recent news, affirms its own outlook. So long as we see these contracts continue to build and revenue and profitability follow, this stock is likely going to hit new highs.
Yeah, I've just got the Bridget's buy list pulled up right now too, just showing we bought it last week on Monday when it was really down pretty far. Last week, Monday was a down day for the market, around 85. Right. I expect this one to continue to bounce around, right, Thomas?
It could. We're at a bottom, so there could be some consolidation. There could be some sideways movement. Today's action makes it look like the rebound is in full effect. So we might see some more upside before we see some downside. But as long as we don't set another new low, it looks like a bottom is in play and that it's a good time to start, accumulating and rebuilding a position.
Very good. Well, I'm going to go get a little rundown of some stocks that we're going to go through now. So you guys can look them up. ZenaTech, a gamer, thank you so much for adding that one. That was somebody commented earlier this week too on ZenaTech. So we'll get to that one. And then we'll talk about NVO. That one's been mentioned a few different times. And then ASTS had a big move, and Microsoft. So I've got 4 more that we're going to talk about here. We'll go through them as quick as we can. I think let's start with ZenaTech because I had that one pulled up earlier before we even started today, talking about what could possibly be going on with this stock. It's a smaller one. Right now it's less than just under $3, but it's down quite a bit. What are your thoughts on this one?
Hang on a sec. I think it is enterprise software, cloud-based software for medical records. So it's a good industry based in Canada. So, and it's got drones. All right. So this is an interesting 2-pronged story where we have cloud-based med tech and drones. So both of them are pretty decent businesses. I guess it's just kind of a toss-up of which one is going to be the real driver for business over time. And now they're doing surveying, right? So it seems interesting, but it also seems like it's a little confused as to what its focus is. So I'd be careful with this one.
Yeah, I do want to pull up too. There's not a lot of analyst coverage either. And I think if you're just looking at just the data to see what's the consensus price target, $9 at a 200% upside for that one buy rating, it seems like a good win. But again, I think talk about when you have just one coverage, how much weight do you put into that, Thomas?
Not a whole lot.
Not a whole lot, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's important to note too with some of these smaller stocks that we're talking about. Again, a quick reminder for everybody watching, none of these are stock recommendations of saying, oh, buy now. This is us just diving into some of these stocks, looking at some of the stats. These guys are in the market every day, so they know what to look for, and they're giving you a quick little overview of some stocks on the fly. So take that for what it is, and that's just a quick look at some of these companies. Let's go to ASTS next because it's one that I'm used to looking at. Apparently, we've got a lot of moves in that one. This is one of my favorite concepts because I would love to have cell service anywhere, especially out in the mountains, wherever you're at. This one went down quite a bit, but now today up about 7%.
Well, right. So, corrected earlier this year, concerns about valuation, the growth outlook. Those concerns were kind of affirmed with the last earnings report because it missed significantly. However, it's very early stage growth company. Revenue was only about $12 million because it's not fully up and running. It's still launching satellites. A lot of these contracts come with contingencies for when it has services available, but those services are ramping and it is expecting to continue growing at this hyper pace. Although it missed in the last quarter, it also grew over 1,000%. It's going to double sequentially if it meets expectations in the next quarter and continue to grow at this hyper pace as it continues to expand its network. It's supposed to have, full coverage of the markets that matter within the next 12 to 18 months, contracts with all the big mobile carriers, governments. So there really is a robust outlook. Concerns are going to drive volatility, but long term, the trend should remain up. And right now, that's what I'm seeing in the charts. Today's action showing support at the moving averages shows me buyers at a critical level. So I would expect to see it, stabilize here and then begin to move higher. If not by the end of the year, then by the beginning of next year, certainly in tandem with the next report.
Perfect. All right, let's move on to NVO, and then we'll go to Microsoft too. I've got both of those pulled up right now. NVO, Novo Nordisk, rough chart here. At least it looks like it.
Let me see here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like it's up today, is it? Let's see. No, actually, it's down about 5.5% today.
Right.
Just taking
So,
go ahead.
yeah, it looks like they got some disappointing news. It was a long shot, but they were trying to they were testing their oral GLP-1 drug to see if it had any benefits related to Alzheimer's disease, and they reported today that it did not. So it didn't show any real benefit in treating Alzheimer's disease. So that's why you're seeing the stock go down a little bit today.
Growth is slowing, so that's impacting the action. It'll slow again in the coming quarter.
Right.
We've got let's see here, P&E. The valuation's kind of low, so it looks like a pretty decent value buy.
It's down a lot.
Dividend looks pretty decent, 3.6%. So you could see some value buyers and some dividend buyers stepping into the market at these levels.
Okay.
As far as the chart goes, I mean, we're down at 4-year lows, almost 5-year lows.
Right.
That seems overdone.
I was thinking the same thing. This is a really big pullback on a pretty large pharmaceutical company.
Right. It looks like, and something to notice too, within the last since July, the last two big pushes lower were accompanied by volume spikes, and then the last push lower didn't really have as big of a dip. It looks like people are buying the stock at this low level. Let's look and see what the institutional data says. NVO, Novo, Nordisk, analysts. So analysts are still holding. They say 30% upside. Price targets have been falling, but coverage is rising and some buyers are stepping in. So it does definitely looks like people are buying the stock as it moves lower. Institutional trends show the same thing, especially the first half of Q4 was a 3-quarter high in buying activity with the quarter only halfway over. So it does look like the market is buying this dip.
Yeah, that's one thing. And just a quick information before we get to a couple of other names here. When we have a large company like NVO that's been around for a long time, that's having a low like this, how do you guys look at those kinds of dips in a really established large company? Do you usually look at them as buying opportunities, or do you wait and evaluate what, like you just did, like the institutions and what other players are doing in the market?
Well, it's generally a buying opportunity, but you want to try to gauge the bottom. I mean, just because the stock is moving lower doesn't mean now's a good time to buy. You want to see signs of a bottom that confirm that's a good time to buy. And it's usually best to wait for a good signal in the chart to say this is now absolutely a time to buy.
Yeah, and with Novo Nordisk, it's a little. I mean, when you start getting in that biotech and biopharma realm, you've always got to be paying attention to what the pipeline is and what they've got coming. I've been trying to scan through their recent earnings deck a little bit, and it looks like they've got some stuff coming out. That will break it away from that diabetes, obesity care. Not that market's going away, but that the move with a lot of these other companies is you're going to have to start showing what else do you have in your pipeline to go beyond that.
Yeah, I think that's good. Well, let's move on to another one. This is a big familiar name, but people want to know about Microsoft. What's happening with Microsoft stock right now? It looks like for today, not a lot of huge moves today.
No, it did pull back last week.
Right. It's just up a little bit today.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like I want to say it's just a natural correction and a consolidation. There are some signs in the chart that there's some pretty stiff resistance around $500, but I think the analysts are generally bullish. So this could just be a market that's, selling off on some AI angst. Yeah. We get another good report that kind of affirms that AI is still driving the business. It could bounce right back, right? Because analyst trends are still bullish. Coverage is rising, sentiment is firming, the price target's trending higher. The most recent revisions are just a couple of days old. So 2 downgrades to hold, but there's upgrades to offset them. Price target increases are leading to the 550 to 650 range. So we're looking at like a 20 to 30% upside. Yeah, I think the market just needs a reason to be buying. Right now, it doesn't have one. It's interested in Google, interested in other stocks. When somebody shines the flashlight back on Microsoft's AI business, I mean, the market will go back to it and start buying that stock again, most likely.
Yeah, it looks like there's going to be a little bit of a delay. I'm looking with the UK as far as instituting some of the data center, some of the AI infrastructure build out there, and Microsoft's a little frustrated by that because they're going full steam ahead here in the US and they want to continue to do that overseas and stuff like that. So, yeah.
All right. Well, that's a good look at Microsoft. Let's get through another list of our final few names here to talk about. Sure. SMCI and then BBAI. Again, another 2 names we talk about often. This is a newer name. Hassan wants to know about TGLS. That one's a little bit different. Technoglass. I don't think we've talked about that one before. So those 3, and then another one that might be one of the last ones we look at. People want to know about Rocket Lab, if there's any moves with that one. I know we talk about that one too. So let's start with SMCI.
SMCI.
We haven't talked about this one in a while. I know we've talked about it plenty of times.
Yeah, I know we've talked about it before.
Yeah, this one is down so much. I haven't seen it in a while. Thanks for bringing this one up. I think it's been 3 months since I've talked about it. I think the last time we talked about it, it was somewhere around here.
We've hit on it off and on. It's not really been a...
Yeah. It's up today.
Q2, 1034. Yeah.
I'm also curious to see, I'm just going to take a look at the analyst forecasts on this one to see if that's changed. Not too much. And then let's see how they did in earnings. It looks like they had an earnings miss.
Yeah, the last one was not that great. But I'm looking at the forecast. The forecast for next quarter is ridiculous. I mean, it aligns with the AI trade and what we've seen with NVIDIA and other businesses. Okay. Oh, I see what's happened. Oh, this is interesting. But it looks like highlights. I just want to confirm this. Right. So the company guided for about 10.5 billion in second quarter revenue, which would be basically a 100% quarter to quarter sequential revenue gain, which is awesome. It totally is in alignment with the AI trade. Sounds like there could also be some caution in that outlook, just based on what we've been seeing from the other manufacturers.
Yeah, the margin pressure I'm seeing a little bit there. The company's guiding to a little bit of a margin hit in the next quarter. So,
right. But
Yeah.
I mean, what's a small margin hit when revenue doubles?
right. Yeah.
If that's the case, I know a
Well,
couple of good points here brought up in the chat. Michael says the accounting issues with SMCI, and we've talked about that on the channel before. I think that's why we brought up SMCI initially a
Yeah.
year or so ago with some of those fears. They switched out the C-suite a little bit to help
Right.
Right.
get rid of some of those fears a little bit.
Right.
Yeah, this is an interesting one with how low it is right now. I do want to have you, just because we're talking about AI, we have another big question about what is your take on the AI bubble. So as I pull up the charts for some of the last names we're going to talk about, just give a quick synopsis on if you guys think that there is an AI bubble, or do you believe the guidance that the AI market's just going to continue to grow?
I think it is a bubble, but this is a frothy growing market. So it's not just one bubble that's going to pop and be done. It's bubbling. It's a bubbly market. It's a frothy growing market. So there's going to be some pops and some bubbles here and there, but the AI market will continue to go on long into the future. That's what I think.
Yeah, I think it's a bubble, but I think it's a bubble that's being formed because right now it's the best game in town for a lot of investors. And I think where, if you're going to have some concern over the AI trade, I think it's going to come in if and when the rest of the market starts looking viable. That's when you're going to start seeing it. But right now, this is where the action is. This is where the trade is. And I don't really see much movement out of it, because where are investors going to go?
Right.
Yeah.
If they want growth, where are they going to go?
Well, speaking of AI, thank you both for that take on it. I'm going to BBAI, a stock with AI in the ticker.
Sure.
This one is up 16% today. And I know, Thomas, you've had some woes about BBAI before, but it had a nice little jump today. I'm curious what might be behind that jump.
Well, my first response will be that it's just, hopeful investors riding the AI wave. There was some news out late last week. It's got a memoranda of understanding to advance a project. To help strengthen Malaysia's aerospace industry. It could be an affirming move for the business, but right now it's still not really a market mover or a needle mover as far as the revenue outlook, the earnings outlook. So the market's up right now. I would be hesitant to chase it. Let's check out the short interest, because it's had a lot of short interest, so this market might move up, but the risk is that gains will be capped at $8 like they have been the last 3 rallies. So until we get above $10, I would be pretty leery about this rally having legs, just because of the amount of volatility.
Yeah.
Short interest is
the company got whacked a little bit because of the government shutdown slowed down some of the momentum it had with some of the government contracts. They're hoping to get that back in 2026 and 2027, but again, that just remains to be seen if that's going to happen or not. Right. So, and a lot of that growth is fairly priced into the stock right now. So, it's
yeah. Super interesting. I've got just a couple more names here that we're going to get to before we'll close out on just a bigger question. So let's just do Webull really quick because there's quite a few people who asked about that one. I know we've talked about it before. And then we'll end with TGLS just to talk about a different one. I like it to talk about different companies. Webull had interesting, huge spike earlier and now still just around the $8 range right now, $8.50. Thoughts on, is there any real movement happening there? It looks like it was up 5% today, or not quite 5%.
I'm sorry.
Giving Chris and Thomas some time to look at this right now. Again, this is one that IPO'd went really high. Consensus price targets are up there pretty high compared to where the stock is trading right now. But it's new enough, even though it's a name a lot of investors, retail investors especially, are very familiar with.
Right. Looks like analysts are cutting their targets. So that's not good for the stock price action. The post IPO action is pretty ugly.
Yes.
Yeah.
That second week there was a huge spike, resulted in a lower close, indicating some really hard, heavy resistance. So even if this stock were to advance, I would say getting above $28 is going to be nearly impossible unless they're really making some money and they've got really strong support from analysts, institutions, capital returns, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah. Well, very good. A good quick look at that. Well, let's go to that smaller new company we haven't had on the show before. This is TGLS. Have either of you covered that before on one of your articles?
Nope.
It's a new one.
Architectural glass.
Yeah.
Some high tech glass. Some thermoacoustic and tempered.
Analysts love it.
That's what made me want to cover it, because the couple of people who are actually covering it have high expectations. That's for sure.
Yeah, short interest is going down a little bit, but it's still about 10%.
Looks like margin is a pretty important driver for this one. It's got a dividend, 1.25%. That's not huge, but it's definitely market average and worthwhile. So here you go. Payout ratio 15%, super low. It's been increasing for the last 4 years. It's running a 22% CAGR for the dividend distribution. That's pretty huge. That's like 10 times the pace of inflation. Maybe they don't maintain a 20% CAGR, but you can expect them to run a double-digit one.
Yeah,
and that's just good for compounders. This looks like a great stock for compounding.
So interesting. I love to see the names that come up with on MarketBeat Monday. A lot of names we wouldn't cover or think about otherwise. So thank you everyone for putting those names in the chat. Chris and Thomas, as always, thank you so much for giving us your knowledge and taking a look at these stocks really quick. We had a lot of more questions about the economy that we didn't quite get to as well. So we'll try and touch on those during some of our regular videos this week. I know it's a holiday week, but we are still going to be here on MarketBeat this week. So I hope you'll join us if you've got some downtime over the next few days of holidays. We'll have videos out almost every day this week, so join us then. Thanks again for watching, everyone, and joining us for MarketBeat Monday. As always, happy investing.